Good morning, everybody. I'm going to do a video on the build of my 55 Willys truck. A little background on this thing is I bought the truck, the Willys, when I was 15 years old. I'm 47 now, so I've had it for a while. When I first purchased it, I purchased it from an old dude who in his yard he had 3 different trucks, and he let me pick which body panels I wanted. That's why the cab and the bed are different colors in the front and the fenders. When I bought it, since it's a 55, they came vintage 55 either with a flathead 4-cylinder or a flathead 6-cylinder engine. When I got it, someone had already done a motor swap to it, and they put, I would say, about a 70s vintage straight 6 in it, and it was kind of a home job, so it wasn't the best. It ran fine, but me and my buddy were out four-wheeling it, and we jumped it one day, and the motor mounts broke, and the motor basically fell on the front axle, and it stopped running after that. So at that point, I parked it in my parents' backyard, and it sat there for about 25 years till I started doing the build on it. The build is, it's a body swap or chassis swap, I don't know which one you want to call it, but the body parts, the 55 Willys, as I said, and the frame and all the suspension and the drivetrain, that's a 2007 Chevy Colorado. A lot of people, when they do the body swaps on these older trucks, they put it on a full-size chassis, like a Silverado or a Tahoe or something like that. One reason I chose the Colorado, because the track width is the same as the Willys. I didn't want my tires sticking out to the sides past the fenders. And I want it to be a little bit more narrow so that when I'm going on trails and stuff, it's not as wide. And I also live in the city, so it makes to park in tight parking spots, stuff like that. The Colorado wheelbase and the Willys wheelbase didn't really match up perfectly. They're off about 5-6 inches. The Colorado's a little bit longer, so I didn't modify the Colorado frame at all. What I did was I took the Willys body and I stretched it 4 inches. You can see I stretched it here on the side and the top. And when I did that, I also had enough space to add mounts for shoulder harnesses in the 4 inches that I created. So then it made the wheelbase line up a lot better. I'll walk around and kind of talk about stuff that I had to do to mount it. In the back, the mount in the bed was pretty simple. I just made this angle iron frame, mounted to the factory bolt locations. Suspension is stock suspension. The gas tank is a stock Colorado tank. I just cut a hole here and mounted the filler tank right out there. The body's the same. So under the hood, the Colorado engine is a 3.7 straight 5. And it runs pretty good. It pulls this thing around plenty fast. I tried to use as much of it from the Colorado as I could to keep costs down. Here's the factory master cylinder, ABS module, fuse box. I had to cut a couple holes in the firewall to get the wiring harness to run through. You see it back there. All the factory wiring. But one issue I had when putting the body on the chassis is the engine was 1 foot forward. So basically there was no gap here where the radiator is at, and there's about a 1 foot gap back there, which was a problem. So to remedy that, I scooted the engine back about a foot and redid the motor mounts and things like that. And when I did that, I had a couple other issues. One of the main issues was that the suspension on this truck is a torsion bar suspension. So you got a torsion bar coming back from the front end back to this cross member right here. They're keyed in. And when I scooted the whole engine back in the drivetrain, the transfer case came back a foot too, which placed it directly in the center of that cross member. So instead of trying to move this cross member, change the suspension to something else, I chopped out that cross member and put in this steel plate to support it. Time will tell how robust it is if I need to do anything different. You can see here where the factory transmission mount was. I had to scoot it back here, so that's the distance I had to move it back. I had to shorten the rear drive shaft a foot. I still haven't put in the front drive shaft yet. I'm working on that. The fuel lines here, I had to cut them and shorten them and re-splice them together. Now the wiring is good. I just kind of had to wrap it up with the extra stuff. So other than that, it fits pretty good. I wasn't able to use the mechanical fan because there wasn't enough room here, so I switched to an electrical fan. Using the stock radiator, I made mounts for it. Here's where the electric fan is controlled, the thermostat and the upper hose. When I scooted the engine back a foot, it put the oil filter directly over the differential, so there wasn't a room for an oil filter. So I had to install this remote mount oil filter up here, which works pretty good so far. Here's the lighting. So for the interior, I took the seats out of the Chevy Colorado. They fit pretty good. I had to modify the mounts a little bit, but not much. Width-wise, they fit pretty good. I still need to do a lot of work on the interior. I struggled back and forth between replacing or putting in some vintage gauges over here, or using the factory gauge cluster. I decided on using the factory gauge cluster then because it has a lot of information in there. You know, when you turn it on, it has fault codes. It still has its cruise control, so it has all those controls and those lights. It's nice to be able to see those things. So I decided I cut this out and I stuck it in here. I still need to finish the mount. As you can see, it's kind of taped on still, but it works pretty good. Everything works, runs. All the wiring from the factory. You know, the Colorado has a drive-by-wire gas pedal. I used the steering column from the Colorado. I mounted it all here. Just kind of cut up the firewall to get the fit, mounted it all in there. Met the mount for the brake and the steering, all the same thing. So that was, once I got that mounted, it went pretty good. The stock Willys stick, and had a few holes in here. One for your shifter, one for your four-wheel drive transfer case. I think you had a high, low, and a four-wheel and two-wheel. So I cut those out and put this here so it's nice and clean. Yeah, that was pretty good. Another one of my goals for this thing was, in doing the chassis swap, is I wanted something that was really reliable as a daily driver. I wanted something, you know, had power steering, power brakes, cruise control, just easy to drive, so I could drive it every day. And I could get on the freeway, get off the freeway, no problem. So I think I've achieved that so far. So that's where it's at currently. What I would like to do in the future, my future plans for it are, eventually I'm going to paint it, but that's kind of down the road a little ways. Right now, I like it looking like a rat rod. My future plans are I purchased a heating and air conditioning unit. I'm going to mount it under here. I'm going to take out these gauges and all these controls, and here's a four-wheel drive switch, hazard switch. I'm probably going to mount those here. Also, here's the headlight switch. There's not really room for it to fit over here, so I might reroute it, mount it here. With the leftover room, I plan on putting like a double din stereo with GPS in there. That'd be nice. Of course, I was gonna put carpeting, and I'm gonna put a lot of that sound deadening mat in it, because I want to be able to, when I drive it down the highway, I don't want it to be really loud and obnoxious. Another thing I plan on doing is building a front mounted winch bumper, putting it right there. I've seen a lot of them, they stick out really far. My goal is to try to tuck the winch in this area here, so it's nice and compact. Another thing I would like to do is build a rear bumper for it with a 2-inch receiver, so I could tow stuff around and make it as a usable truck. Here's the lights I got. A lot of the stuff I got off Amazon. The Colorado wire, I couldn't use LED headlights because the Colorado kind of has a weird way of controlling the high and low beam, so I couldn't use LEDs. off of normal Jeeps. I had to use halogen. I had to wire them backwards. That was a little interesting, fun to figure out. One of the issues I do have is when I turn the steering wheel, it kind of binds a little. It's kind of stiff in a few spots. And the reason for that is, let me turn it off so I can get in there better. One of the reasons the steering binds a little bit is because the cab's a little farther back than the steering component, so it's hard to see. Down there is a steering U-joint. It's a double U-joint. It's at kind of a steep angle, and so when you turn it, it kind of binds when it rotates. So I'm still trying to figure that one out. I had to make new mounts for the body mounts there. I reused the Colorado bushings. Same here on the back. I just made new mounts off the frame. So far in this build, I got invested about $7,000 bucks. Well, the truck was $500 when I bought it. The Colorado was about $4,000. So I got roughly $3,500 worth of extra parts into it, and that's the tires and wheels were $800 bucks. So as far as parts go, I don't have all that much invested. I'm trying to keep it as low budget as possible. So there it is. Thanks for watching.